Hey there, leader. I see you. Are the ever-expanding responsibilities of entrepreneurship keeping you from developing the life-first business you've always wanted? If you're expending precious time and energy, but still struggling to identify a defined direction for your business, grappling with the growing list of competitors in your area, or wondering how to hire, train, and delegate to a growing team, I have a brand new resource for you. Introduce yourself to the KLC Happy Hour Masterclass Bundle. I put together 4 high-impact masterclasses built to help you sharpen your business acumen, level up your leadership, and master your marketing. This high-impact bundle walks you through branding, hiring, culture curation, and scaling up. And the cool thing is, it's all pre-recorded and all yours to consume and dig into on your own time. For a limited time, Fierce Factor listeners get $100 off with code FF100 off now. Go grab this bundle at klcconsultants.com/HH bundle. Okay, now on to our scheduled programming. Hi there. Welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader, and welcome back to episode number 177 of the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here, and I have a special treat for you today. This week, I had the amazing pleasure of sitting down with a dynamic client of ours, Allyson Reynolds. She's an NP and the owner of Om Med Spa in Boise, Idaho. And I got to chat with her and her amazing practice manager, Olivia Taylor. I had asked Allyson to join me to really share her success secrets about her experience transitioning from a one-woman show solopreneur to building a multi-million-dollar self-led medical spa in a booming city. And Allyson has been in practice since 2016, and she came into our academy last year to really learn the skills and get the support and community to help her scale up her business. And like many high-achieving entrepreneurs, Allyson was really wearing all the hats in her business and decided to bring in some strategic talent to focus on the admin and management side of the business so she could open up more time for her to think, to plan, to travel, and to, really creatively challenge herself again. And Allyson's no stranger to hiring struggles that many of us have. Most of us who are building something significant have experienced some ups and downs as it relates to building a dynamic team. And now insert her secret weapon, Olivia, or Liv as we call her for short. Liv graduated from Boise State with a double major in human resources management and business administration. But it wasn't her degree that captured the attention of Allyson. It was her passion and commitment to growth. And you'll get a keen sense of that through the course of this interview. And Liv, in fact, enrolled into KLC's Certified Aesthetic Practice Leadership Program. And she shares how her experience and mentorship in that program really rounded out the skills that she now independently contributes to Om. So in this episode, we'll gain some insights into how having a practice manager can be life-changing for you as an entrepreneur. We'll hear some practical tips for organization and prioritization of visionary ideas. And ultimately, I hope this episode either reinforces for you or helps you reframe your mind around the idea of investing in human capital to build your business for you. It has been such a pleasure watching Allyson and her team multiply in more ways than one over the past year. And I'm confident that you will take away some really meaningful and powerful lessons by hearing her and Liv's story. Okay, leader, without further ado, please enjoy this brilliant interview with KLC Academy rockstars, Allyson and Liv. Well, hello. I'm so excited to have finally this really incredible interview with you, Allyson and Liv. Welcome. I have already given an intro to our listeners, But I would love for you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about Med Spa.
Thanks for having us, Kaylee. We're excited too. This is Allyson Reynolds. I'm the owner and medical director of Med Spa in Boise, Idaho. We've been open over 7 years now.
And I'm Liv. I'm the practice manager. Super excited to be here and talk about the business.
So excited. It's super fun to have the experience of, so Allyson, we've been working together just under a year or so. And what's so cool is going through the experience of having a vision, seeing the potential for growth for your business, knowing that there's a lot of opportunity, but going through some of the challenges of hiring and finding great people. You've been through a move and all of the real things that a lot of times, by the time we hear from injectors or providers in our industry, they've already kind of scaled up and they're just really talking about the business from the perspective of what happened, years ago. And I love the opportunity to work with you, Allyson, but also for you guys to share, Liv, your story of how you guys have become and built as really a team and transitioning for you, Allyson, from just the provider in the business to owner. So tell us, Allyson, a little bit about your background and how you ended up getting into aesthetics. I think this is such a great story.
When I finished grad school about 13 or 14 years ago, I took a job in our local children's hospital in pediatric general surgery and trauma. And I loved the job, but it really, as you can imagine, is pretty emotional. And so after several years, I really started to become burnt out, but I didn't want to leave it and find a new job completely because I really loved the team that I was on, but I also love working with kids. So for some reason in my brain, I got the idea that instead of quitting, finding a new job, I should stay there part-time and start a business part-time. When I was in grad school, I had gone to a local med spa to have a small tattoo from my college days lasered off. And that was what put the idea in my head of maybe I could start one of those. So I'd never actually, other than that moment, been in a med spa, and I'd never gotten Botox when I started this business. I just thought, well, that sounds fun. Let's do that. So that was 7 years ago, and it's been a really fun project since then.
That's amazing. I can't even imagine. It was sort of an entrepreneurial spirit that you had to say, this sounds like a really fun idea. I'm going to start a business.
Yeah, you could tell how naive I was to think, that sounds fun. I know, let's do that. And never have run a business.
Yeah.
I really didn't even know, how do you first order Botox from the Botox company? How do you buy needles? How do you get malpractice insurance? I didn't know any of those things at the beginning. I had to just one by one figure each one of these tasks out.
Yeah, teach yourself. So what was your business like in the beginning before you had a team to support you?
Obviously, for several years, it was just me. And I was really lucky that I still worked at this large children's hospital with a lot of female coworkers. So having the patients come in the doors was never the problem because I had known all of my coworkers for so many years. But knowing how to run the business in a sustainable fashion that felt A, safe to me, and B, didn't just completely drain my energy, that was what took a really long time. I was amazed at the lack of resources to tell someone, this is how you run a business, or this is how you start a business. I looked and I really couldn't find that. So it was just each time there was a new need, I probably should own a business credit card, having to Google that one task and then on my own figure out what was the best. I really had no guidance, which was a challenge. Everything took a lot longer than it could have if I had had good resources.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it so true? You don't know what you don't know in the beginning. What would you say has been your biggest struggle as a female entrepreneur? You talked about building a business sustainably without draining your energy, having to find resources. And obviously, as we know, building a business has some high highs and some even lower lows at times. So where do you think you would point directly to this was one of my biggest struggles that I had to overcome?
I think that's still a struggle I feel. I don't know if this is a common feeling in this field, but because it's a women's run business and it's in the aesthetics or beauty industry, I feel like a lot of people think of it more of a hobby as opposed to a very robust, very profitable business. People think what we do is Botox as opposed to empowering women and giving them confidence. And so sometimes when I tell people what I do, I almost feel like they're saying, oh, that's so cute. You run this little business, or like it's a hobby, but it isn't. It's not. It's well run and well organized, and we have really great outcomes and very happy patients and clientele.
Yeah, it's life-changing.
And we know that in the industry, but I think sometimes people outside of the industry don't recognize that.
Yeah, it's always those people.
Those
people, not like that. But when they don't see it from that perspective or have never had another friend or family member in that, I think they view it from a very different perspective of they don't understand what really goes on inside the business as opposed to just making people feel pretty. It's a lot more.
Well, yeah. And two, I think that transition back in the day before there were medical spas, quote unquote, right? There was your average go get a massage and fluffy woo-woo, feel good. And this is medicine. And so I think there's the complexities of building a business and practicing safe, ethical medical practice.
I tell both our employees and our patients all the time, like, this is not makeup and I am not giving you a facial. These are prescription products that I am injecting into your skin, and we have to respect it as such. This is medicine. It's not something fluffy, and we all need to take it seriously.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about sort of your transition then into that decision of like, probably when you started, right? This was your side job. I remember I joke all the time about my husband when I started. He would say, how's your jobby? Like as a joke, like a hobby job. Okay. Watch me. Yeah. Underestimate me. I dare you. But at some point, you had to decide, I'm not going to be this business. I'm going to give the business its own soul. And with that is going to require me to invest in and build a team. And here, this is why I was so excited to have Liv join us today too, to talk about that experience also from her perspective. And, a passion of ours is obviously working with women like you, Allyson, but also providing the support to train and mentor and develop and grow the people that are going to run the business. And you never questioned that. And I feel like there's so many times where we, from our perspective as growth advisors, right, are challenged by trying to convince somebody that, no, you really need to invest in a manager earlier. And you need to invest in, doesn't have to be somebody that knows everything. It doesn't have to be a multiple six-figure practice manager who's run a corporation. Like it could be somebody who just is passionate and willing to come in and do the right things. So for you, you were like, yes, I'm in. This is what it's going to take. But so many practice owners are hesitant to invest and train their team members. So did you feel some of that yourself? And why do you think that is the case?
I think for years, I was hesitant. I think it's scary to think about turning over this love of yours to someone else who might not love it as well as you do. I think you feel like you maybe can do all of these things better than someone else could. But, after 5 years of ordering insulin syringes at midnight from McKesson, it got to the point that I realized I cannot be an expert in all of these things. And trying to do this many tasks means I'm probably not doing any of them very well. And that made me nervous because I do want to run a safe and ethical practice. And I knew my expertise and my knowledge and time needs to be put into making sure we are safe and we're ethical and we provide the best patient outcomes possible. It does not need to be ordering needles at midnight. Somebody else could do some of these things to help me. So I think I was appropriately hesitant for a long time until I got to the point that I realized I'm not running a great business if I'm trying to do it all. And because of my background, I've never run a business before. I am not an expert in running a business. I'm not an expert in human resources and other types of business administration. And so it really just spread me too thin. It took me a long time to realize that. And once I finally did and had started the process to bringing in a team, it's just been a whole different world for me.
Liv, I'd love to hear some of your perspective and for you to introduce yourself and give some of your background as well.
So I double majored in school. So I have a bachelor's in business administration and human resources management. I've also, since I was 16, always worked for a small or local company. In my first job, I started as an employee and worked up to a manager. And then I had an HR job in a mental health clinic. So I think that's helped a lot in helping Allyson and take those kinds of things off her plate And I think we do really well at teaching each other things about the things we're not as educated in. So that's been really awesome to have each other support each other through that kind of stuff.
That's incredible. Just great teamwork and partnership. How did you guys find each other?
Well, as you know, since you were part of my hiring process, I trialed and failed every possible way to hire someone. So I found a million good ways to not hire over the year before Liv came. And through the work at the Academy, I realized I really needed to stop shouting to the masses, please, will anyone come and work for me, and be very intentional about how to find the right person. So I finally stopped and sat down and created a task list. This is every single thing I would want this person to do for me. But then the next step, which was very different, was to write a love letter to that employee. And in that love letter, it wasn't task-based, it was characteristic-based and character-based. These are the characters I want you to have, and written in a format like that person already existed. I want you to love my patients the way I do. I want you to believe in this industry and the gift it gives women, not see it as something fluffy or just about beauty. I want you to be energetic and be excited to be here. And on that love letter, I also wrote a bunch of things I didn't want them to have. I said, I love that you don't think you're punching a time card when you're here. I love that you want to make the role better than what I created on that job description. So with that love letter, I was really able to take that and the task list and write a very robust job description, as much to weed in the people that would fit that job description, but also to weed out the people who were not going to be ideal. I don't want somebody who wants to come in and punch a time card. I want somebody who wants to help this business grow and believes in its ability to do that. So through that process, I really honed in on what I was looking for instead of just shouting to the masses, and met a few candidates through our hiring process that were good, but not quite ideal. And then one day, Liv walked in. She's been a patient of ours for years at the spa. I've actually known her since high school. And when I saw her after doing all of this very intentional work, I knew that there's a chance she could be an ideal candidate. And so right then I asked if she'd like to interview for our job.
That is incredible.
Walking out the door and she caught me.
I did.
She's like, let's go for an interview.
Yeah. I think a lot of owners are scared to hire their patients. And it's so funny to me because I'm like, they're worried that they would lose them as a patient, or what if things went wrong? And I'm thinking the upside of having an employee who knows and loves your culture already and knows you. I mean, my gosh, that's huge, right? Like to come in and already have level of trust established. They was attracted to you for a reason to begin with.
Yeah, I think you're right. Our philosophies are really aligned about what my med spa or what this med spa should be in the world, that it's, like we said, safe and ethical, but also we're more on the conservative end of treatments and stay very natural, which is different than some practices in town. And so it was a great fit that she had already known our philosophy and obviously had decided to be a patron of it along the way.
That's incredible. What is it like now having Liv on your team versus pre-Liv and now?
Life-changing for me. I cannot emphasize that enough. To have somebody come in that is competent and truly an expert in a lot of the things that I'm not has just taken so much worry off of my shoulders. The first week she came in and she walked around our new building, she said, did you know you're supposed to have some OSHA?
Yeah, it's like all of your work compliance
posters up. And I was like, no, I didn't know. So even just that one thing, the first day she started saying,
they're up now, right? Before we
they are up now. Yes. Okay. I mean, the first day she came in, she was like, before we jump into this job description, why don't we first just get you compliant? And I said, why, thank you. That sounds like a wonderful idea. So from the beginning, I had felt safer in the way our business is run. And because she was here and we were able to really build out an HR department that is not only compliant, but is manageable, we were able to hire 3 more staff right after. So now we are fully staffed for the first time in 8 years and have people that do individual jobs expertly. And it takes the worry off of my shoulders that something's going to go wrong, either with our business administration or with our treatments. And it takes the pressure that I have to be good at it all because I'm not.
I think too, there's that like knowing I don't know everything, and I am willing to admit that to myself so I can get the help of soliciting whatever, or we can have somebody that can help figure things out is amazing. And I think what's so cool, and Liv, I'd love to hear your perspective too on this, is that you didn't come in, Liv, with a background in aesthetics. You haven't been in the industry, which I think could frighten somebody, or maybe on paper you think, well, this is such a unique industry. I really need somebody that comes in and just knows all the things already. So let's talk about that. So Liv, for you as someone who was new to the industry itself, what has it been like? What are some of the challenges? Were there certain things that were really challenging for you to learn in your role? Like, what's it been like getting to know this industry?
Totally. I think the most challenging thing was all of the medical terminology that I had never, ever imagined I would have to use in the workplace.
Yeah.
I come from HR and business admin. I'm like, I never imagined this. So it's like the science behind our lasers and vascular occlusions and the Fitzpatrick scale are things I never thought would be my terminology of work.
Yeah.
I didn't learn about that in school at all or in my previous work experiences. So that was a huge thing that was, intimidating, like you said. And I have to know all of those things to write out our policies and procedures and execute marketing. I have to be aware of those things. But Allyson and our other providers that we've recently taken on are so helpful, and they're always willing to help me learn things. And I'll sit in when like Allyson's friends are a patient or something, and I'm like, so step by step, tell me what you're doing because I need to know more. Or at our conference that we're going to in Dallas, I'm skipping some of the business stuff to go to the clinical track so that I can just observe and learn more because I need to know more to be more well-rounded and market the right things to our patients and see more of what they experience.
Well, I can see why this fits your love letter, Allyson. Your willingness to learn and grow, right, is just one of the key things. I do want to kind of touch back on, and Liv, I want to come back to you on that piece. But real quick, Allyson, I think it would be helpful because I know you talked about sort of some of the hiring mistakes that you made beforehand. And just in general, you made a comment about anyone and everyone that would be willing to work for me. It was like sort of where you were. Was that just of a sense of, I'd be lucky to have just somebody to come in and help me? Talk to me about kind of where your headset was there before you went through the hiring process of finding Liv.
I think so. I guess since I hadn't gone through formal training on how to find the right candidate, I kind of just thought, anyone that wants to come in and do some of this stuff, I could hand these tasks off to somebody. And anyone probably can order needles at midnight. But having somebody that actually comes in and functions as a leader and a mentor and can manage when I am not here, that's a different person than someone who can just get onto McKesson and order needles.
Yeah.
I think I was just looking for anyone to help me before because I was so tired from doing all of these tasks, but going through the work to really think of what that right candidate was going to be like is what slowed me down to realize I wouldn't be just lucky to have anyone walk in and want to help. I love this business and I love our patients, and they deserve me finding the right person for this job so that the business runs as efficiently and as well as it can be. That's also how our patients are going to get the best experience.
I love that. We always say you can teach somebody how to do the things, but you can't teach them how to get excited about doing them. And that's why those sort of intangibles are so important. And hiring for character is critical because, to your point, here's the checklist of things. You can find 10 people that can do the things, but there's only one Liv. And it's going to take longer, right? And I think that's where we lose patience in the process and start to doubt ourselves. And at the end of the day, Allyson, I've just admired watching you transition from a person who was the business and to somebody who is building a team who's now building the business and really giving OHM the resources to function as an entity. So it's been incredible. Liv, going back to sort of your training, I know that you are a certified aesthetic practice leader through KLC. Congratulations. So I wanted to talk to you about that training and program and a little bit about what your experience was like going through that certification process.
It was so helpful, especially not having any aesthetic or medical background. I think the certification helped me in learning what the patient needs from us as a practice. Because of my past experience, I knew so much about hiring and policies and procedures. And I think that your program is so educational for someone who has not done that before. And so it was kind of nice to see that and observe it as someone who did, because I'm like, well, this is still helpful for someone who wouldn't. But learning things like the 8-figure patient experience and retention and how to stimulate our current patients was a huge training in my ability to do my job. And from that, I think we have implemented so many things to help us elevate the patient experience. And it's been so fun to see change actually happening from that. And one of our huge things right now is that I made a really big emphasis to our providers and receptionists on how important it is to educate our patients on skincare to further address their skin concerns beyond just the procedure that we were seeing them for that day. And from making that a priority with everyone, we've sold $5,000 more in skincare in just this first half of the year than we did all of last year. So probably going to double or triple what we do in skincare. And that's just like a little example of how those kinds of things have been changing for us and how recognizing what's important for the patient has like changed our business for us and for them.
That's incredible. I love that. I think at the end of the day, regardless of the industry or backgrounds, or if it's about the customer and you're focused on helping the customer get the best results and have the best experience, you kind of can't lose there. It's the foundational element of growing a successful business. So that's awesome. I love hearing that, especially as someone who's comes with such experience on the business side as well. So what, Liv, is it like working for Allyson as a leader?
It's so much fun. Like I said before, like we just have a really good time bouncing our ideas off of each other. And I think we both work really well that way. It's like when we have a big project, we like to talk it out and not just be like in our head about it. We like to write things down and work through it. So that part of collaboration with her is so fun. She's so caring and kind to me and her other employees, and seeing our new employees come in and be so comfortable and start forming those relationships with each other really stems from her and her ability to be a good leader. And she treats her patients that way too, which is so awesome to see. And she's just so passionate about this industry. So it's awesome to have her as
I love that. So what's your guys' communication cadence? Like, what are some best practices? Because obviously this is like someone listening might be like, oh, that would be a dream. How do I find a Liv? And how do I develop this kind of a relationship with my manager? I know you said you're taking Mondays off, hence why we're able to talk today to work on the business, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you guys communicate and what your meetings are like and stuff like that.
We're still learning that because Liv's been here a little less than 6 months and we're still learning what the best modality for us is, but we definitely need time together. Even when it's unscheduled, we both have a million ideas each week and we really need time to throw them at each other and kind of bat them around. So we take both Mondays and Wednesdays are admin days for us that we work together. It doesn't mean we're both sitting here the whole day, but it means this is dedicated time that we can work together to talk through all of the new ideas and challenges that have come up for the week. We also just realized that I'm a person who almost like spitballs ideas every second. Coming out of me, text, email, talking, hey, Liv, you know what would be fun is if we did this. And after a few months of being here, that got Liv to the feeling that she was getting a bit overwhelmed and not knowing necessarily which of the things I was throwing at her were priorities. So we just a couple weeks ago implemented like an A, B, and C priority list for all of the tasks so that, you know, if we have a patient care issue, that can always be an A and get taken care of right away. But if we need to order toilet paper, that's maybe a C and could wait for another day or two.
Unless there's a pandemic coming.
That is a good point. So
they do change sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. They definitely will change over time. So that's, I think, been helpful to us to start to say, just because I shout ideas every second of the day doesn't actually mean they're all A, good ideas, or B, priorities in this moment, and to help Liv start to understand what really is a priority in my brain and what's not. We've been trying to work through giving everything an A, B, or a C for our tasks, which is actually, I think, going to be really helpful.
Yeah. Because sometimes I'm like, Allyson, I don't know what you think is the most important because they all sound good and fun, but what's the most important to us right now? which has been really good for us.
Just to have someone to ask that question is such a resource, Liv, because as visionary leaders, we do this, right? We're constantly thinking about what could be possible. And then there's the reality of what can be implemented on what timeline and how to properly resource our focus into the places that are going to make impact in the right direction, right? So there's the big picture of things we could do and want to do. And then there's okay, we have to run the business and this is where we need to deploy these resources now. I know I remember even Shannon, who's my Liv, I'll just give her stuff and she's like, what's the due date? And I'm like, everything's due yesterday, right? Jokingly, obviously, but she's challenged me to have to think to myself, like, what kind of time do we really need to invest in this and what's possible? And she'll even push back on me, like, we need to give ourselves an extra 3 months, or that's a next quarter project for us. We have like our little dump list. So I love the A, B, and C priority. That's such a great tip.
It's also been really beneficial that Liv has the type of personality that she's okay managing me, which is what I needed. A week ago, she said, I can't believe you haven't done these things in your email that I sent you. We have to have these done right away. And I thought, oh, that's good to know. I just thought they were sitting there for like whenever I wanted to get to them, but it was really important that I got it done. And so bringing in somebody that has a strong enough personality that's okay telling me what I need to do when I need to be managed has been, I think, really beneficial for me as well. Because as you know, as an entrepreneur, you get so caught up in the ideas all the time that you don't always think about if something hasn't been given to you with a due date, you don't always jump to it to get it done. And so that it's been very helpful for me.
I love that. And also, I feel like the task list that's always swirling in your head, like even for me, I think this is such a great point because as I'm thinking about who's the right person for a job like this, if you're going to have your chief of staff or right-hand person, that should be somebody that you can trust to basically manage all those things in your head, essentially. So you have the confidence. I can just only imagine the mental freedom that gives you, Allyson, to have somebody where you're like, okay, now it's out of my head and it's in your ecosystem of things to take on and even send the reminders and things like that. I can think of times just laying in bed like, oh, did that happen? Did I follow up with that? Da, 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 da. But to know that someone's going to come back and gently remind you that, hey, we need to get these done.
Remember we talked about this.
Yeah, no, I love that. So Allyson, let's talk kind of about your journey over the past, even 7 years, but I know together we've had over the past year, you have expanded to a new location, you multiplied your team, you have been through personal challenges and all of the things, but what has been your biggest accomplishment in your recent trajectory of growth, I would say?
I think that the biggest accomplishment has been building our team. Thinking about myself a year ago, I was on vacation with my family. I had my laptop with me. I was working late into every night so that I could spend time with them during the day. I felt very frazzled and spread very thin. Fast forward to this summer, I was able to go on a vacation for 7 days in a place without cell coverage and felt completely okay doing that. And that was only 12 months of change, but it's so remarkable in my own life. I feel like it's actually improved my personal relationships with my family. I spend more quality time with friends. I get to actually rest more. And that is all because I now have a team that I completely trust to run this business in my absence. And without the work of the academy, I can't really imagine I would be here. I think I would still be like shouting at the masses, like, hey, anybody, do you want to come work here? That's great. Look how cool we are. Opposed to have taken the intentional steps to find the right people.
That's incredible. It's hard.
It's hard at the beginning.
Yeah. And I think like something I've come to learn, and you have to go through it. People ask me like, how do I get great at public speaking as an example? And it's like, you have to go be really bad. Yeah. Like you have to suck at it first. And I think that's a lot of why we stumble in the hiring process is that you have to suck a little bit, right? Before you get good at it. And then once you figure it out, it's like fuel to the fire, right? It's just, okay, now we got this process and system in place. And now we know what it takes to be successful here as an employee.
I'm not intimidated for the next staff member we need to bring on because we have the process in place, right? We'll go to the task list, then we'll write the love letter, then the job description. Yeah. We'll repeat the same system that has worked when we need to hire someone else. And so it won't be as scary.
Yeah, I love that. So what would you say, Allyson, it would be your best piece of advice for any female injector who's sort of in your shoes or maybe a couple of years behind you looking to scale up her business?
My best piece of advice is don't try to be the expert on all things. I always thought, well, I can Google this or I can find a book that will tell me how to get through this phase of my business. But that is very slow and laborious to accomplish a task. Finding a coach that really feels very much like a mentor. And also through the academy, I found a support network of people I could bounce questions off of. I wish I would have done it earlier, is to find not only the mentor, the expert in this field to help guide me, but also to find the support team that can give you advice when you need it and sometimes tell you what not to do and cheer you on.
I laugh. I think back to some of the stories of going through the process pre-live. The women are just like, girlfriend.
Yeah, I think one time you said, sounds like this was good that you didn't hire this person. Like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, and that's what's so great. Like, I love that this conversation is sort of spun in that direction too. And I think Liv, as you're now taking over the hiring and leading and management of the team, is to remember sometimes it takes figuring out what we don't want to know what we do. And we have to give ourselves the grace and the space and the patience to go through that process of figuring it out. We'll do the best we can, but those milestones are going to happen no matter what. Okay, so I would love just to, in conclusion and kind of wrapping up this conversation, any other final thoughts or maybe together, like things that you guys would think of as like a manager, owner team that you would want to share with our Fierce Factor podcast listeners?
I guess I would say don't be intimidated by the process, because once you go through it one time, you have that system in place to go through it the next time. So it seems like a lot of work at the beginning to go through the intentional steps to find the right person, but then you've created that system and it's much easier each time you have to go through it in the future.
I would say, I think that people shouldn't be intimidated to switch roles in their careers. I never thought I would be in this industry at all. And HR is what I studied, but now it's a portion of my job instead of my whole job, which I actually love. And I've met a lot of people in this industry that have ended up here, not having that background, having a different background completely. And they're the most wonderful people, some of the smartest people in this industry. So I don't think that should be something that's intimidating to people looking to be in this industry.
Such great advice. I love that. So hire for the person, not the position, people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, very good. Well, congratulations again, you two, on all of your incredible success. It's been absolute joy just sitting back with my bucket of popcorn, watching you just freaking crush it and build this empire, truly. So I can't wait to see what is to come in the next year and beyond.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all of your guidance.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, ladies. And I will chat with you soon.
Bye.
Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight, because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.